This is a place where people would come to and use drugs to publicly inject. You just need to be mindful here, because obviously there are needles here, generally around here, but obviously at the moment the leaves are covering them, so you just need to be very careful. I think your boots are probably okay. There's needles here, several needles. Obviously there's one here uncapped. There's another one here, there's one there, and the debris that's lying about. It's not difficult to understand then, you know, why people develop infections and, you know, become ill.
There are spots like this across the UK.
Underground car parks, you know, stairwells, bin alleys, you know, near shops and, you know.
Public injecting sites littered with rubbish and drug paraphernalia. People who use them are more at risk of injuries, wounds and infections, and overdosing. This is a vigil for people who have died from drugs. Drug deaths are at the highest ever recorded. The numbers have increased year on year since 2019 and show no sign of stopping. In 2022, over 3,000 people died. That's an average of 8 people a day. It's about the same number of deaths from stomach cancer a year. But the difference is, a lot of these deaths are preventable.
We need to recognise that we're in a public health crisis of drug-related deaths.
And we've just got to stop the deaths. They're just increasing year by year.
It's clear that the war on drugs is not protecting people. This is a public health issue. It is not a matter of criminalising and policing people.
We need to encourage harm reduction over and above abstinence.
The UK's drug rules are set out in the Misuse of Drugs Act. The law was passed in 1971 and followed a period of counterculture where people rebelled against the mainstream. In the same year, US President Richard Nixon declared a war on drugs. The Misuse of Drugs Act prohibits the import, export, production, supply and possession of controlled substances. Over 50 years later, the Act remains in place, largely unaltered. In 2021, the Conservative government introduced a 10-year drug strategy aimed at disrupting illegal drug supply routes and providing treatment for people who use drugs. One of their aims is to prevent 1,000 drug deaths by 2025.
Drug policy is not based on evidence.
Clearly the approach is not working.
It's more based on people's moral preferences.
It doesn't follow what we know works.
These deaths are preventable.
We have a public health crisis already in this country around drug-related deaths. We've got synthetic opioids coming into the market, which is incredibly worrying.
Drugs being illegal doesn't mean that people don't use them. Sue took us to another public injecting site at the back of a disused car park. She introduced us to Dave, whose identity we've protected.
Well, there's nowhere else, where else? I mean, you can't go in like toilets and McDonald's and...
He's homeless, which makes injecting in a clean and secure place near impossible.
And I cleaned it all up, yeah? Just for somewhere safe.
He's found a lockable space he calls the cage.
As you can see, look. Up there, it can be locked, yeah?
Yeah.
And then nobody can get in there, no children, nothing. And then that's why I call it the cage. Like, you know, only I can lock it, like. People walk past, nobody wants to tread on one. And it just makes me think, like, what if my daughter trod on one and then I'd switch, you know what I mean? I'd be really, really unwell. So that's the reason why.
Last summer he cleared up this spot, a popular injecting site underneath some trees, which have since been cleared out.
I was just piling them up, like, and then Sue came along and she brought the yellow, you know, them big yellow box things, put them in there and brought me a litter picker instead of using my hands. So then I started using the litter picker, and then I chopped the trees down. They must have been waiting for me to clean it all up and then chop the trees down, you know what I mean? They must have thought, let's wait for him to do it and then we'll cut the trees, so we ain't got to deal with them.
Overdose prevention centres, drug consumption rooms, safe injecting sites. They have different names but one aim: to reduce the harm around injecting drugs. There's around 200 across the world, in 17 countries. The Scottish Government has given Glasgow the go-ahead to trial one in 2024, but they won't be allowed in England and Wales. A study in France found these centres reduced public injecting, and the number of discarded needles was 3 times less than before. One of the centres monitored was Espace Gaïa in Paris. The centre opened in 2016 and it's funded by the government. Around 150 people pass through its doors every day, some more than once. There's 3 rooms, one to register, one to take your drugs in, and a third and final restroom. Attendees need to register on arrival. It's anonymous so they can use a pseudonym.
If I see that what you announce is a lot compared to your last thing, or if I see that you are already drunk or under the influence, then our team will try to manage this with you through negotiation.
But you show your drugs at reception and they get logged on the system. They also offer sterile equipment and health products that people can pick up and take away.
Like, you know, most of the people, they think that in the drug consumption room it's like fun, everybody's coming here and doing drugs and be high. Really, it's more people, very precarious people coming here, and these people say no, we are just giving ourselves just to be capable to, you know, able to function, to live.
Ben, je m'appelle Peter. Et voilà, je dis quoi? Une majorité de gens qui viennent soigner leur manque, principalement. Des gens qui prennent de la morphine ici, ou de l'héroïne, ou quelque chose qui rend malade si on n'en a pas. Donc on dit souvent qu'on vient se soigner.
This is what the people inject. So they have to wash their hands. This is mandatory. So they have to choose any of this material.
In the room we have minimum 2 people.
And 1 nurse.
And 1 nurse.
It's
always
mandatory to open.
We go by to check if everything is alright, but we try to be not too present.
Most of them are older and they have very bad vein. It's very difficult to inject yourself. It's not an easy thing. So we give them the time they need.
We cannot stick the needle, we cannot push the thing.
But we can help them to see which vein will be better than other if they don't find, and they get nervous and nervous, just to help them to calm down and to try again.
Peter's been coming to the centre for over 3 years and says Guy's offered him more than a safe and clean place.
Oui, ça m'a permis de refaire tous mes papiers, toutes mes démarches. Je touchais plus rien au niveau aide sociale, RSA et compagnie. Et c'est quand même grâce à la salle que je dors plus dehors, que j'ai eu un hébergement, un hôtel au début du Covid. Et tout ce qui suit, l'assistante sociale m'a aidé à faire mes démarches de RSA. Et petit à petit, voilà, ça m'a permis de me remettre sur les rails, quoi. On assiste beaucoup aux abords de la salle à des gens qui sont contre le fait qu'il y ait des salles de shoot, parce qu'ils voient que le mauvais côté de la chose. Et je repense sans arrêt à ce truc-là, que je me rappelle dans les entrées d'immeubles, entre les voitures, dans tout le quartier, qu'il y avait des seringues partout, dans des conditions pas possibles. Entre les voitures, les gens qui passaient, qui amenaient leurs enfants à l'école. Malheureusement, j'ai participé à ça aussi, où on n'avait pas le choix, où on shootait n'importe comment entre les voitures, enfin, tout ce que ça comportait, les seringues, les bagarres, les énervements avec les gens. Et tout ça, ça a quand même bien réduit grâce à la salle, plus tout ce que ça nous apporte en termes de... avec les travailleurs sociaux, avec ce que ça peut nous aider, quoi.
Drugs are still illegal in France, but the police do signpost the consumption room.
There is a perimeter around the DCR. If people are searched by the police and they have a little amount of drugs, they will be pointed at the DCR. We don't touch the product. We cannot allow to be accused of stealing their product or giving it to someone else.
If we don't know to whom it belongs, we have to destroy it.
Yeah.
Because if we say, Who's that? You have. It's mine.
Not everyone is totally on board with consumption rooms. Some residents in Paris have protested plans to open more DCRs in other neighbourhoods. Dave also explained why he might be reluctant.
Police. That's the only thing people worry about, because where are you going to look for a shoplifter? What they're going to do is wait outside and go, this is where they are, I'm going to be in here.
The centres can be really expensive as well, raising concerns they divert funds away from other treatments. A major review of research into DCRs was published at the start of 2024. It found these centres could prevent deaths, reduce drug litter and the spread of disease, and relieve pressures on ambulances and hospitals. The study was part funded by the UK government, but they have no plans to allow them in England and Wales. They said they're concerned they encourage drug misuse. So why has the UK government taken the approach it has?
Drug policy is not based on evidence. It's more based on people's moral preferences. What they say is, we don't believe that we should be that liberal. We are tough. These are moral arguments, not evidential arguments.
Alex Stevens has been researching drug policy for years and has previously advised the UK government.
There's nobody claiming that an overdose prevention centre is going to solve all the problems we have with drugs. They are services for a specific group of people, people who are not involved in drug treatment, who are involved in street-based drug use. For those people who are at very high risk of dying, we can do something to save their lives and get them into other services.
The government wants to prevent fatal drug overdoses by expanding access to naloxone.
This one's been set up to carry a naloxone, which is a drug for...
Naloxone is a life-saving drug, and it acts quickly to reverse an opioid overdose. The government's funded a trial to deliver the antidote by drone.
The problem is access to naloxone. If somebody's having an overdose, we need to get it to them within at least 7 minutes and quicker if possible.
So this can be launched from pretty much anywhere in the world without the need for an on-site pilot. This can be sat there waiting for an emergency. You don't have to run to fly it. You can just press launch and it's ready to go. So the idea is this reaches the patient first and gives them a bit of extra time so the ambulance can get there and actually really save them.
So say you've witnessed an overdose and call 999. What happens next?
The call handler then alerts the drone operator. The drone operator then launches the drone. The drone flies from its drone station to the point of care where the overdose is suspected. So the drone lands, the bystander then removes the naloxone from the drone, goes to the patient and then administers the naloxone to the patient.
I have lost 2 sons to heroin. My son Roland, who was aged 23 at the time. And then the next one was my son Jake, and he died in 2014, aged 38. After having 2 sons who were so involved in drugs, I had been reading more and more about the ins and outs of the laws and how people ought to be treated and all kinds of things. And I had become to realise that actually the way we are doing it at the moment is completely opposite of what it ought to be, and that punishing people does not stop people taking drugs. People are always going to take drugs, they've always taken drugs, they will always go on wanting to take drugs.